I have learned so much from the trees on my farm about magic. The plants are constantly speaking to me, and especially about spell working, because, you know, nature itself, the growth of plants is like a magical spell woven around me all the time, and there's just so much to be gleaned from that. And I've been wanting to do some larger workings, like I'm feeling more energized right now. How about you? Feeling more energized right now, and I really want to do some bigger workings, longer spells, larger spells, spells that you feed over a period of time. If you don't know what that is, this could be like finding a partner spell, finding a job spell, attracting the right place to live in, maybe creating an opportunity for you to move. Maybe you want to do something for health or fitness, and you want to, you know, money, that's a big one, money spells. I was out today, actually the last week. These things come to me over a period of time, but in the orchard, and really feeling like the trees were speaking to me about these five things to remember when creating a long spell working. Some spells are, you know, like that, fix it and forget it. Who remembers that cookbook, Fix It and Forget It? Anyway, digressing again. You know, and those are great. I'm totally into that. If you watched my It's Not What You Think video, then you know I'm into those quick sort of workings. But sometimes you want to put more into it. You want to get more out of it, and it takes a little bit more. And so we're heading out to my orchard. Take a walk out here and think with me on this. The first thing to think about is growing the magic inside of you. And this goes back to intention and secrecy, which is something that I don't think we talk about enough here on YouTube. I think it's really important that before we even try to craft a spell or do anything, we make sure that we grow the intention and the vision for it inside of us to where we really, really feel it and it's really established. It's that as above, so below. All of these trees out here had about 5 years at least while they were getting established in their root systems underground, where you can't see what's really going on. But they were getting really established so that they could be really strong and healthy on top, so that they had the ability to support the tree, to really support the tree and, you know, bring in all the nutrients, to get everything at the right time, establish itself in the soil, stand up straight and tall, all those good things. And I think holding the magic inside of us is super important. Holding our intention inside of us, really growing it so that we feel like, oh man, I'm ready to burst. I'm ready to birth this. I'm ready to create a spell and push this out into the universe. And so, you know, for me, the secrecy part of it, like, don't tell anyone. Like, as soon as you tell someone, hey, I want to do a spell for this, then you open it up for them to contribute their thoughts, you know, what's going on down in here with them, their energetics. And I think you don't want to convolute things. I think it's so important as a magical practitioner to learn the power in holding that inside, like really growing it and getting it big and juicy. And just not allowing naysayers to come in and have their say on it, or go, have you decided on this, or did you try this, or maybe you should do that. Because I think the best spells that we craft are the ones that come from within us. They're the ones that we make, that we create. The next thing I was thinking about is just how important timing is. Oh my goodness. Timing on so many levels, but the biggest thing that I've noticed about working with my trees out here is that certain trees, like my bosque pear trees, they take a really long time to make the fruit. They flower first and they get picked last. And what that means is it's a really long, just like a long working spell, it's a really long time, but timing is so important with this, because if we have really rainy days here on the farm while these trees are blooming, then they're not going to get pollinated. And that's because when it's rainy, a bee just cannot get out and about, because the size of a raindrop to a bee is devastating, really, truly. This is my newest colony, you guys. I split my colony, it was too big, and I put it over here. If you have a moment right now, do me a favor, take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, blow some life towards this hive and health. Man, our breath is so powerful. So yeah, engage with me in a little spell here as we breathe in and blow out and send some life and love and health to this colony. Back to timing. So you want to make sure that you time your spell. Like if you're going to do a long working, make sure that you start it on the right day. You know, do your research, get into building your spell, make sure that you've put the time in to really figure out, you know, when to start, what day of the week, what planet correspondence is. Maybe there's plants blooming outside and you want to correspond it to that. Maybe you're doing a spell with a plant, like where you get a plant and, oh, just had a spider attack. So maybe you're gonna like get a plant and plant that plant, and that's gonna be part of your spell. So you need to be able to tend that. So don't do that right before you go on vacation. Like that's not gonna work. Timing is everything. Make sure that you plan your spell at a time when you can actually tend to it. And that brings me to number 3, really, really big one, is keep it simple. Oh my goodness, keep it simple. Especially when it comes to long-term spells. How many of you out there have decided to do like this long-term spell and it's like super intricate and you're excited, like I'm gonna do this big magical working, it's gonna be so cool for me to do that. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Like this is too much. I just can't do it. So case in point here, let's look at this tree here. This is a Bartlett pear, and you can see that it's got all of these new branches up on top. Like it just puts out tons and tons of branches. And this is a Bartlett pear that I've already pruned. That's what it needs to look like to stay in good shape. Well, that's a lot of work. But again, my bosque pears, which are that long-term fruit, like here's one right here. It just never needs to be pruned. It really, the only thing is like for shape. It's such an easy care tree as far as that goes. And so you want to make sure that your spell is kind of an easy care spell, honestly, or you're just going to burn out. I mean, I'm just like, I'm laughing at myself because I've had so many times where I'm so enthusiastic to do this, and then, you know, I'm planning on doing this for like 4 months or something, and I'm just burnt out, just completely burnt out. So keep it simple. I can't wait to hear what everybody has to say down below about like their long-term workings, like, you know, the different ups and downs that you've had with it and your tips and tricks as well. Number four is be prepared for your spell to evolve. Trees have something called the July fruit drop, and that is where like the weak fruit in July, it just falls to the ground. As I work this and I'm like into week 2 or 3, maybe you're just doing a 7-day spell, but you know, I never do daily spells. I am not that girl. I'm neurodivergent. I cannot do a daily for a couple weeks. It's a bit much. It would have to be in winter when nothing was going on the farm for me to be able to do that. But I've noticed that as I am working a spell, I'll notice that like maybe the chant that I create, I'm really into creating rhymes. something that I can chant, or it doesn't have to rhyme, but that's just me. Let me know if you guys want a video on like how I craft a spell, like how I actually sit down and how I figure it out. But I will notice that like I will craft something, and then as I chant it and as I start the working and the magic starts really being released, there's something about the connection of the fruit that's to come, like what I want to reap from the spell, and what's inside of me, the as above, so below thing, where I realize that like, you know what, I need to change that word from if to when, or, you know, it evolves. And I think like maybe even, you know, like month 2, I think, you know what, I don't need to do that part of the chant anymore. That felt like the beginning of the spell. And so, you know, I'm going to drop that part. You know, I really don't want to do, I feel like this month I need a different colored candle for that. Or, you know, I want to add in this herb. So just like be prepared for your spell to evolve. Like I have to be able to evolve here on the farm. I have to be able to relax and let nature take me. I need to respect nature. And I think the spell, it somehow grabs a hold of what's really inside of you, like your true intention, and it evolves as you do. And that's one thing about witchcraft. How many of you out there find this, that your spells will grow you out of your old sense of self? They will refine who you are, actually, you know, cause shadow to come up. I mean, I've heard about people who have cast spells are like, oh, I want to find that person, the one. And then they lose their job and they have to move to another city and it feels like their whole life is falling apart, and then they meet that person. So spells take on a life of their own. So be prepared to let that life sort of carry you. The last one, number 5, kind of piggybacks on the whole July fruit drop thing, is that long-term spells are for big results, big fruit. So if I have, you know, 300 apples on a tree, the chances are that they're all going to be really small. They're not going to get very big and juicy. Like the tree just can't support that unless it's really big and really old, right? So that'd be like a really long spell. Really, really long spell. Let me know if anybody has ever done like a spell for like a year. That would be amazing. How many of you have done a working for a really long time? Let me know down below. Long spell workings are for big fruit, and the less that's on the tree, the bigger and juicier they're going to be. And so, you know, if you're going to bother to sow into a working for a lot of months or weeks even, you know, I say aim big, go big, go big or go home. I'm primarily an animist. And so my experience with nature really informs my practice. And I find that the lessons that nature teaches me is like really, really practical. And when I listen to nature and I mimic what the goddess is really speaking to me, and I take it to heart and I make it real and I play it out in my life, I find that I really reap the benefits of it. I understand how to go with the flow of not only the environment around me, but the environment of myself. I think that's one of the greatest lessons as a practitioner, and being in my 50s, who can shout it out there, is learning to not sweat the small stuff and go with the flow, and understand the lessons that are in front of you, and to really live them so you don't have to redo them. Anyway, I hope that you got something out of this video. Please let me know about your long spell workings and what you think about these ideas and how you might use them or not. And yeah, share. I really want to know if anybody's, let's see who's got the longest working down below. The longest working I've ever done is 3 months. That's the longest I've ever been able to make it. So put down below the longest spell working that you've ever done. And if you've never done one, if maybe you're interested in it, may your craft be about owning your personal power, the power that's rooted within, so that as above, so below is what blossoms into the beauty that you want to be.